to integrate, and you are going to integrate on both sides. Okay, the relation that you get when you integrate is going to be the general solution. Okay, the general solution. Then after you integrate and get the general solution, remember that always has a plus c in it. Okay, then you are going to solve for y equals. Okay, and then your little star here is if that's possible. Okay, we will look at some cases where it's not possible, but for the most part, you're going to be able to solve. And then your last step would be to find the value of your plus c, which turns it into the particular solution. Okay? So this is just a method of integrating, okay, that hopefully will not be super hard. So, when you're ready, take a look at number 1. How are the x and y stuff related in this differential equation? All of the x stuff is divided by all of the y stuff. That makes it separable. Okay, what are my two operations that are allowed? Multiplication or division. So, this is an example of a separable differential equation that is separated by division. So, what you are going to do, I'm going to rewrite this a little bit bigger here. dy dx equals, I have a negative sine x divided by a 2y. I need to get all of the x stuff on the right side, all of the y stuff on the left side. So the first thing that I notice is I have a 2y on the bottom. To cancel that out, I'm going to multiply by 2y on both sides. Now, when I multiply by 2y, what's going to happen with the 2y on the bottom? Cancel, cancel. Okay, so my y stuff is all on the left. All my x stuff needs to be on the right. You see your dx? Okay, down here, we're going to have to move that. So I'm going to multiply my dx up here, multiply my dx over here, and then what's going to happen with my dx is here. Cancel, cancel. So now this is what I have. 2y dy negative sine x dx. And then once I do that, I'm going to apply an integral to both sides. Okay, so after I separate, that's step 1. Step 2 is to integrate. What is the integral of 2y? Remember, we're doing an antiderivative, an integral. So the derivative would have been 2. Antiderivative, though, becomes y squared. Divide the squared on the 2, it becomes a 1. Okay, other side, negative sine x. What's the antiderivative of that? Snow cone, snow cone? It would be positive cosine x plus c. Now, technically, okay, you need a plus c on both sides, but if I have constants, I can just minus this constant over and just have one constant on x's side. So don't give both sides their own plus c. It's extra work for no reason. Okay, from here, step number 3, I'm going to solve for y equals, if possible. Can I get y by itself if y is only squared? Take the square root. Now, when I square root, I'm going to have y equals plus or minus the square root of cosine x plus c. Good?
That's it.
Okay, that is your general solution. That's it. Now, what is the 4th step to get from the general solution? Okay, I need to solve for my plus c. And they have to give you an ordered pair so that you can find it. So, do you see the ordered pair that they gave you? Okay, y of 0 is negative 2. So then I would say, okay, well the negative 2 needs to be the answer when I plug in cosine of 0. Okay, now this is a little bit tricky. Your general solution is allowed to have a plus or minus. Your particular solution, though, you have to choose one. So if my y value is a negative 2, do I want the plus or the minus from the front? I have to pick one. I would choose the minus because I want it to equal minus 2. So if there's a minus over here, I want to pick the minus from this side. Now, why do I have to choose it right there? Because my next step to get rid of this square root is going to be to square both sides. And what's going to happen to the negative when I square? It's going to end up becoming positive. So I need to choose the negative before I do that step. So negative 2 squared is 4. Negative square root crosses out with the squared. And I just end up with cosine 0 plus c. What's cosine 0? 1 plus c is 4. Then c is 3. Okay, now from here, can I go back to my general, cross out the c, and plug in a 3? The answer is no. Here's why. I can't keep a plus and a minus. Which one did I choose? A minus. So it'd be y equals the negative square root of cosine x plus 3. Okay, and that's my particular solution. It doesn't apply to the cosine because to get to the cosine, I have to square both sides, and a negative square root times a negative square root, all of it ends up just canceling out.
So you picked the minus because that's what you picked.
Because the y value that they gave me was minus. So I'm choosing the sign to match the y value that they gave to me at the beginning. Does that make sense? Okay, come down to number 2. Next one, so I have find the solution to the differential equation, dy dx equals 12x square root y. Okay, first question, how is my separable differential equation set up? Is it x stuff divided by y stuff or x stuff multiplied by y stuff? Okay, this is an example of a separable differential equation separated by multiplication. So if it's separated by multiplication, I'm going to separate it to sides by division. So I have a root y that I'm going to divide. Remember, root y on the bottom is the same as like a 1 over root y. And then what else has to move? The dx can't stay because it's x stuff, so I'll put a dx here. I'll put a dx here. And now look, watch, my dx's are gone from the left. Now it's only y stuff. My root y's are gone from the right. Then I have separated the differential equation. So it's 1 over root y dy, and then 12x dx. And then what do I do from there? Integrate. Very good. Now, before I integrate, I'm going to rewrite this side. Anytime it's 1 over root y, that's not an ln. 1 over y gives me an ln. 1 over root y needs to be rewritten how? Y to the negative 1/2. Yeah? And the reason it's a half is because the square root, and then the negative is because it's on the bottom. Okay? So if you want to put there somewhere, we have to do that rewrite first before we could actually do the antiderivative. Okay, now from there, what is negative 1/2 if I add 1 to it, because I'm doing the antiderivative? Okay, so it'd be y to the 1/2. And then if I divide by 1/2, I'm multiplying by 2. Good? Other side, I have a 12x. What's the antiderivative of 12x? 6x squared plus... See? Okay, my next step, I need to get y by itself if I can. I have a 2 multiplied in the front, so I'm going to divide by 2. Y to the 1/2 equals 6 divided by 2 here is a 3x squared. Now, when you get to here, did you know what c was to begin with? Then when I divide it by 2, do I know what c is? Then I'm just going to keep it a c. Not even going to bother to put the divided by 2. I didn't know what c was then. I don't know what it is now, so there's no point in me keeping track of c over 2. It's just still a number I don't know. Make sense? Okay, last step. How do I get rid of 1/2 power? That's the same as a square root. So to cancel it out, like you guys said, I'll do a squared. Now, make sure when you square the right side that you use parentheses to square the whole thing together. Okay? So I have y equals 3x squared plus c quantity squared. That is your general solution. Remember that it's a general solution because the c is still unknown. So in order for me to find the c, I have to use the point that they gave me, which was 125. So I'm going to use this point right here. 25 needs to be the answer when I plug in x to be 1. So 25 equals 3 times 1 squared plus c squared. Okay? So 1 squared is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. So I have 25 equals 3 plus c squared. What's my next step? Square root. What's the square root of 25? 3 plus c. What happens to the squared? When I square root, the squared crosses out. Now I just have 3 plus c equals 5. So c has to be 2. And then from there, if c is 2, I need to rewrite my particular solution with my plus 2 plugged in. So it would be y equals 3x squared plus 2 quantity squared. Okay, this is your general solution. This is your particular solution. Yes?
Take half of c up there, though.
Okay, so here's where I would say don't keep track of that. So if I called this c over 2, let's say that I decided I wanted to keep track of it. Okay, if this is a c over 2, then this would be a c over 2. And then I'd have to multiply by 2. What would my c be? 4. But what's, if I put a 4 over 2, what is this still really? Just a 2. So that's why I would say don't worry about c. C is going to just kind of be like a black hole number. You don't know what it is until the very end. That's when you care what it was. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, turn the page. Okay, next one. Take a look at number 3. How is my separable differential equation separated? Division. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of multiplication to fix it. So I have negative 9x squared divided by 2y. So what terms are moving? Okay, multiply by 2y on both sides to cancel that out. Then multiply by dx on both sides to cancel that out. So now I have 2y dy, negative 9x squared dx. So far so good? Okay, integrate both sides. Integral of 2y, what do I get? Y squared. No plus c, because remember, I was going to put it on x's side. Okay, on this side, antiderivative, add 1, it becomes x to the 3 with a negative 3 in front, and then plus c. From there, I want to solve for y. Y equals what for my general? Okay, what's wrong with it? Plus or minus. Now remember, my general solution can have a plus or minus, but when I use my ordered pair, I'm going to have to choose. So for the next one, I want y of 1 to be negative 3. Then I want negative 3 to equal plus or minus the square root, negative 3x cubed plus c. Oops, this should be a 1. So 1 cubed is 1. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. So I have negative 3 plus c square root equals negative 3. What do I do next before I square both sides? Choose a sign. If I have a negative on this side, I know I want a negative on that side, and then I can square both sides. What's negative 3 when I square it? Okay, and then what's negative root when I square it? Just the middle of the root, negative 3 plus c. Make sense? Now, another thing just to point out, someone asked this in the other class, why doesn't the negative 3 go away? Because that's the middle. So when I multiply negative root 3 times negative root 3, the negatives in the front cancel out, the square roots cancel out, but the middle stays the same. Okay, so then I'll add that 3 across. What's my c? C is 12. Which means that my particular solution is y equals what? Very good. Negative 3x cubed, and then plus 12. Make sense? Okay, now a little bit of algebra 2 here. How do you find the domain of a square root function? Okay, domain. Domain is basically telling you what x is allowed to be. So where is x? X is inside a square root. What are you not allowed to square root? Anything negative. So the stuff inside the square root has to not be negative. Then what does it have to be? Negative 3x squared plus 12. Now, I wouldn't say 0 to infinity because we have to solve for it. Greater than or equal to 0. Very good. So you're going to take the crap from the middle of the square root and you're going to say, okay, whatever's in here, it has to come out greater than or equal to 0. And then hopefully you remember how to solve this. If you don't, I'll review it with you. Take your plus 12, minus it over. So now I have negative 3x cubed greater than negative 12. Then what? Very good. When you divide by a negative on both sides, you remember? That little guy has to flip. So it used to be that x was greater than, but now I want x cubed to be less than 4. And then for my last step, what would I do? Take the cubic root of both sides. Now, when you cubic root, do you have a plus or minus? No. Okay, that would be your domain. Okay. All right, look at number 4. Number 4 is worded a little bit differently, but it's the exact same question. Look what they tell you about this expression. They tell you that that's the slope. What does slope mean? Derivative. So what are they telling you? They're telling you that the slope, which is dy dx, is 2x over y squared. So they're giving it to you in a different way, but they're telling you this is the slope, then that's the dy dx, so then what's your next step? Separate, integrate, solve for y, solve for c. Okay? You can do it. Give it a shot. While I go gingerly waking up over here. Yes, Alex? Sure. Okay? With a bit sweet. You can do it. Okay, bring your y squared over. Now, if your y started on the bottom, where does it end up? Should end up on the top when you move it. So we should have y squared dy, 2x dx. And then after you separate it like that, what's your next step? Integral on both sides. What's the integral of y squared? Third y cubed equals integral of 2x. X squared plus c. Next step, this is where some of y'all aren't going to like it. Okay, but when you times by 3, what happens to the x squared? It turns to a 3x squared. What happens to the c? It stays a c. You didn't know what it was before you times by 3. You don't know what it is after you times by 3. So you're just going to leave it a c. So look, I'm going to times by 3 here. I'm going to times by 3 here. So I'll have y cubed equals 3x squared, still plus c. Okay, don't care what it was before. Don't care what it is until the very end. Then what's my last step to get rid of the cubed? Cubic root. So that means that when I cubic root both sides, make sure that you don't do this. Is that right? No. Okay, where does the c really need to be? Under the root. So sometimes it's easy to make your root a little bit too short, but remember, it has to be covering the plus c. So that's your, huh?
Did they take off points for that?
Mm-hmm. Now, if you put it inside on several steps, there's a chance that they may kind of know what you meant. But in general, they want it to be under there. Now, what is your point to use? 1, 2. So I would say 2 needs to be the answer. Cubic root 3, 1 squared plus c. So 2 needs to be the answer of the cubic root of 3 plus c. What do I do next? Cube it. If I have a cubic root, I have to cube both sides. So I'll put a 3 here, 3 here. What's 2 cubed? 8. Cubic and cubic root cross out, so just the middle is left, 3 plus c. Minus the 3 across, then c is 5. And then this is where it becomes super important that you don't leave your answer chunked out like that. You need to rewrite the full solution. So my full solution would be y equals cubic root 3x squared plus 5. Okay, now a question. It asked me about the domain. So for a square root, I can never square root a negative number. What about for a cubic root?
Yes.
Are there any restrictions? Can I cubic root positive numbers?
Yes.
Can I cubic root negative numbers?
Yes.
Can I cubic root 0? Then it would be all real numbers. You remember that symbol? You could also write all real numbers if you like that better. You wouldn't have to use that little R symbol. Good? Okay. Try the beginning of number 5. Number 5. How is my separable differential equation separated? Division. I got x stuff divided by y stuff. So separate it. And then try your integral on both sides. Okay, that should be your step 1. Then I'm going to integrate on both sides. What's the integral of 4y? 2y squared. What's the integral of negative cosine? Remember, you're going up. Which one? Snow cone, snow cone. Yeah, so if I go up 1, I'll still be on a negative sign. Other side, 3x squared, antiderivative is plus c. Now, if you flip back over your paper, what was the little asterisk on the solve for y? Says if possible. So, most of the time, you can solve this. But if this is your equation, can you get y by itself if one of the y's is in a sign and the other one's squared? No. So, for this, it is not possible to get y equals form. So, this is your general solution.
You have to write that down.
No. I'm just putting it in here in case you look back at it. Okay, so the reason I get to leave this is it's not possible for me to get y by itself anyway. So that's my general solution, but I can still find my particular solution even if it's not solved. It doesn't matter. What is my x going to be if I have to go through 2, 0? My x is going to be 2. What's my y going to be? 0. And what's the only thing that I won't know? C. So I can still solve for it. It's just not going to be a solved equation. So I'm going to still use this point right here. So I'll have 2 times y squared, which is 0, minus the sign of 0, equals x, which is 2 cubed, plus c. Then what's 2 times 0? What's cosine or sine 0? 2 cubed is, so 0 equals 8 plus c, then what is c? C is negative 8. And then can I still write the equation of my solution? Yeah, so it'd just be 2y squared minus sine y, x cubed, and then minus 8. If you wanted to put plus negative 8, that would be fine. Kind of weird, but not wrong. I'll show you the words that they'll use so that you'll know if you have to solve it or not. Also, keep in mind, if it's multiple choice, it'll be obvious if it's solved or not. Okay? Then last question, what is the domain? Look at your x. X is over here. Is there any number that I'm not allowed to cube? No. So it would be all real numbers.